Another reason why it's actually quite easy to understand that reincarnation is a thing is that how can you have so much variety in people's likes and dislikes independent of their upbringing? They always say like nature versus nurture, and actually a vast majority of our ability to be happy, for example, psychologists say it's not up to us. It's genetics, they say, but there's no actual genes that they're able to connect to happiness, scientifically. And so your past life, that makes a huge impact on otherwise how can you have so much variety?
Hey guys, welcome back to the Here For Now podcast with myself and Anthony Tai, with Abby and with Joseph Leitman. How are you guys doing? Abby's actually fresh back from a trip in the land of the pyramids.
Yes, spent time with the pharaohs, rode some camels, circumambulated the pyramids a few times every morning, actually. Just what you do in Egypt, in the land of the pharaohs.
Standard procedure.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, we were missing Abby. Obviously, we're doing the questions and answer sessions in the last 2 episodes, so please check those out if you haven't listened yet. And comment as well. Don't be shy. I know some of the viewers are a little shy to comment, to have their questions spoken about. But yeah, it's good to have an interactive dialogue. So please don't be afraid. Put your questions in there and we can address them in the episodes. Yeah, we were going to speak a little bit about reincarnation today, which is a controversial topic for some people, depending on maybe your religious faith, maybe your conditioned perspective or your experiences. Maybe you've had experiences of what you consider to be a past life through hypnosis or dreams or yeah, but there's many faith systems that consider the concept of reincarnation to be practically logical, actually. I don't know if you guys have had any experiences that point towards the reality of reincarnation, or whether you think it's completely bogus or...
Yeah, it was funny, is reincarnation is seen as quite a far out idea. Usually if you tell someone that you believe in reincarnation, they'll be like, what do you mean, mate? You think I'm going to come back as a bloody cockroach? Something like that. Usually that's how people respond. And that's the classic example, like in TV shows or whatever, that's what they talk about. But it's actually very simple and it makes perfect sense, because it's like you're constantly changing in this lifetime. So at the moment of death, you could easily change into something else. Who's to say that you can't continue changing? Who's to say that change and transformation has to stop? Like a caterpillar turning into a butterfly, that's reincarnation. Did you guys know that a caterpillar rolls itself into a cocoon and doesn't just transform, it completely disintegrates into like a liquid and then reforms into a butterfly? I don't think anyone would argue that it's a new soul. Everyone would probably say that's the same being, it's the same creature, just with a new form. But it completely turns into like a little goop of liquid. If you opened up a cocoon early, you just find some liquid come out. And then that turns into a butterfly. I mean, that's reincarnation. Just in this life, you can observe it. So it's pretty cool. Yeah. But you asked if we have any experiences. Do you have any experiences in a minute, Ty?
I mean, I wouldn't claim to have any kind of very convincing experiences. I did a couple of past life regressions when I was at uni. I remember in my friend's room, she had this pink lava lamp, and all of us gathered in there around this pink lava lamp, and we played a YouTube past life regression.
I did that once.
You did that as well. The same.
I didn't know if it's the same one.
How does it work? How does the video guide you through it?
So in this video, there was a man who was very softly spoken speaking, and he said, you should imagine that you're on a beach. You step onto a boat, and this boat takes you out into the middle of the ocean. And something like, at a certain point, you jump off the edge of the boat into the ocean, and you start sinking. Anyway, and you sink further and further and further. And at some point, you pop out of the other end of the ocean, or whatever it is, and you come to your senses, open your eyes, and what do you see? Anyway, the way he did it was a lot better than me. He did it, very carefully, and you go deeper and deeper into this meditation, into this trance, and anyway, and then you open your eyes in the kind of hypnotic state, and what do you see? And I saw, he said, look down, what do you see at your feet? And I was wearing like a pair of brown loafers. What's interesting is that I somehow I still remember this very clearly, which is interesting, you know. Obviously some things we forget, but this experience I had, for whatever reason, I still can remember very crystal clearly. So yeah, that's just interesting. Anyway, so I saw I was wearing these brown shoes, brown loafers, and I was wearing kind of cotton brown pleat trousers. They were quite nice, and a suit jacket. And it was very hot where I was. I was walking, there were like big skyscrapers actually, and I had like a newspaper. It felt as though it was probably around the 1950s, maybe 1960s, and but yeah, I was in a city. It was quite, and my understanding was, I was probably somewhere like South Africa or Chicago. If you imagine what it used to be like back in like the 1950s and 60s. Anyway, so I was walking through the city and I was going to my house, and my house was actually on the edge of the city. And there was, it was like a gated home, and you walked in, and there were like maids, and they were with my mom. Anyway, and they were working on the lawn, and it's like doing
That explains a lot.
doing gardening and things like that. My home it was like a bungalow. It was quite nice. It was like a bungalow. And I was sitting in an office, and I had a phone call to make. And on this phone call, I got incredibly angry, and I was like pushing I had piles of sheets of paper on the desk, and I was like pushing these sheets of paper on the desk. And this lady, maybe she was my wife, I don't know, she came in and she was consoling me. And yeah, what I looked like, I wore glasses. I was a white man. I was maybe
That also explains a lot.
I was maybe 60 years old or something. My father is white, for anyone watching.
Ananda's also white secretly.
And I considered that maybe I was in somewhere like South Africa. That's what I thought. Like I said, Chicago, the city, but South Africa because of the context, like the buildings, and then, you know, obviously there was apartheid in South Africa, and the people that were working for me were all black.
Wow.
Yeah, it was interesting. I don't know if there's anything to this, but that was what I saw.
Maybe this is just how you see yourself in this life.
That's just too much.
I'm kidding.
Well, you know, that's why I kind of feel like I set myself up for that whenever I share this.
Yeah.
It's like, I feel like I always set myself up for that. But yeah, that was the past life regression I did. I haven't had any kind of profound, obviously I've had experiences which suggested of something more than, that things more than just this body and mind exist. But in terms of reincarnation specifically, yeah, I can't currently think of anything.
I mean, that's pretty. I wasn't expecting you to give so much detail. I mean, that's
Okay.
quite an experience. I never had anything like that.
I never
For some reason, when you were speaking, I was imagining Miami.
Really? Okay, interesting.
Because you were saying hot weather and tall skyscrapers, which I don't know how many places have both of those things. Probably nowadays, many, but back in those days earlier, not so many. And then you had this kind of, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but the way you're describing the suit that you had and the lifestyle and just getting, like, I just imagine you as like, you know, this like big business guy, coked up and has many things to worry about and gets, you know, is very easily agitated. And
It felt like
something different actually.
what were you
What were you
thinking?
thinking? 'Cause I know what I was thinking as well. I know what I felt like actually. So
I was thinking that you were very philanthropic, and you like really wanted to help the black people,
okay.
and you were like using them as slaves, but you're like, oh, I really want to help these guys, and now you're like half white, half black.
So positive to
No,
see it in that
I
way.
like that. I like that one a lot.
Of course, you like that one.
You got very good comment as well, so
It's true.
it would make sense.
Makes more sense.
Maybe. Like, did you guys ever see that movie 12 Years a Slave? You did see it. Do you know who Benedict Cumberbatch is? He's an actor anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's Doctor Strange. We were just talking about Doctor
Yeah.
Strange. before.
No, I know who he is. I was just trying to remember which part he plays in that movie.
He's one of the he owns one of the plantations that the slave, the main character,
Mm.
those two. But he's like the sort of person that Joseph's describing. Like he was a good man, actually. Like he had slaves, but he was a good man. He treated everyone very well, and he actually looked after. So yeah, I like to think that maybe I was that sort of personality.
Oh, probably were. No seriousness.
But yeah, what I thought I was, I can't remember why, but I remember thinking that I was interested in philosophy actually, and writing. And so I had all these sheets of paper. Not that I was writing anything philosophical per se necessarily, but I was interested in that. And I mean, it's very easy to think as well that you just project what you want to see onto all these. Like my friend who also did it, he's just like, he loves nature and being in the woods, and he said that he was a lumberjack. So, you know,
Very convenient.
very easily
But it still makes sense because it aligns
True,
with
true.
why does he like nature and all these things in this life. It's because of probably something that he was doing previously.
True.
And that is something I was also thinking about when I was just speaking at the beginning, is like another reason why it's actually quite easy to understand that reincarnation is a thing, is that how can you have so much variety in people's likes and dislikes independent of their upbringing? You know, they always say like nature versus nurture, you know, and actually a vast majority of our ability to be happy, for example, you know, psychologists say it's not up to us. It's genetics, they say, but there's no actual genes that they're able to connect to happiness, you know, scientifically. And so your past life that makes a huge impact on you. Otherwise, how can you have so much variety? Why is it? If you have some idea that there's a purpose and some kind of motivator, some why behind all of this, then it makes sense that those tendencies and those abilities or skills or likes or dislikes or aversions, things that you're afraid of. I know one girl who's terrified of pigeons,
I know people
like
like that.
terrified
one girl.
of pigeons. But she's never, and I asked her, did you have some kind of scare when you were young with a pigeon? She said, no, nothing. I'm just from a young child, I was terrified of pigeons. Where does that come from? Why?
Yeah. There's also like scientific reincarnation theories or case studies, rather. My friend was telling me one where there was this young boy, he had a mini birthmark here on the right side of his head, and then like a slightly bigger one on the left side of his head. And he was saying how he was shot in the head from like a very young age. And he was saying like the family that shot him, where they were,
Yeah.
and it was all verified and confirmed. And there's multiple like that. But I think what I find most interesting about this topic is actually the traumas that we face in this life, and whether they're resolvable by knowing our past life or by just acknowledging that we've been here before. Like for instance, I had some kind of spiritual therapy, as it were, from a couple different people, going back to certain traumas from a young age. One of which was like a speech problem I had.
Yeah.
And so going back to certain experiences I had from a young age, why I had that problem, why I had certain other problems. And I just remember thinking that if they were appearing in this life, they must have had their origin somewhere in a previous existence. Why would it just happen in this life?
Yeah.
These certain traumas. Why do some people have really good upbringings? Why do some people have really bad upbringings? And so, yeah, that's something that I've always been interested in, that sort of trauma and talent side of life as well. Why do we have these?
I was talking to someone the other day and just about spirituality in general, and then this idea of karma and reincarnation came up. Not just reincarnation exclusively, but karma as well, as like a whole genre of spirituality, you could say. And I realized while I was speaking to that person that all of the different doubts and confusion I had about spirituality, or you could say like all the holes that I saw in a spiritual body, you know, like whether it was the Quran or the Bible or different teachers that I met or sheikhs or whoever it was, religious teachers, that I would speak to them and I'd ask questions, or even just my parents, and I'd ask them questions, different holes that I found, you know, like these things we're talking about, like why are we here in the first place, you know, or why is someone born with an illness, a terminal illness, they're just born with it, or why is someone born really rich and someone's born really poor, or these different things, or, you know, if I was born as that person, then what would I be like? Well, I would be that person. Wait, but then what makes me me, and what makes that person, you know, apart from the body and the mind? So I was always asking these questions, and all of those holes in the philosophy are completely filled with karma and reincarnation. You know, when you add karma and reincarnation, then everything starts to make sense. Nothing is unfair. Nothing is out of the ordinary. Nothing comes from nowhere. Everything has a reason. Every tendency you have, every skill you have comes for some specific reason. So it fills up all the holes. And that's, in one sense, that's enough of a reason to believe that it exists. Of course, there's many other reasons, but that on its own is quite a powerful motivator to, look into it. Because then everything makes sense when you have karma and reincarnation in the picture. It's quite interesting.
Yeah. That was like one of the key questions that started me on the spiritual path as well, was because I used to think, I would pray before going to bed, and I would think when I was praying, I'd pray for people in different parts of the world who are suffering in different situations. And I would think though, why was I born here in this body? Like, I've got food on the table every day. I've got a roof over my head. I was born in this part of the planet where there are no natural disasters. We got money in my phone. And then, you'd hear about every day on the news, you'd see natural disaster here, famine, poverty here, all this. And I would think, how on earth have I thought I'm so lucky I've drawn, I've just come out so fortunate into this existence. I used to think of that all the time when I was little. Right. But and so, to what you were saying, the theory of karma and reincarnation fills or answers that question to a certain extent.
And fills up the gaps.
Yeah.
And so back to this experience that you had, because you had quite a vivid image of your previous life.
Well, in theory, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was.
In theory, yeah, you never really know. But if someone was to say to you, oh, what if that's some kind of dream or some kind of image that you made up? How does that, is that a possibility in your mind, or is it just very clear that this is something, a memory, or, what does that feel to you?
Yeah, it's very possible. I conjured it up. Conjured it from my imagination. It's possible. But I just find it interesting that it was very particular and it's very clear. It was very clear visually. It was very vivid. And I can recall it very clearly. I can see, as I'm telling you, I can see what I saw very clearly in my mind's eye. It's just interesting to me.
Yeah.
And as you were saying, in terms of consciousness, scientists still haven't found where consciousness originates. They haven't located its origin yet. Our bodies are composed of the same things that all of this, the table and the microphone, we're all made, it's all made of the same stuff. And eventually it'll deteriorate like everything else as well. But consciousness still hasn't been found. The source of that hasn't been found. And there are so many cases of experiences that people have of, you can say near-death experiences, of coincidence, particular dreams, spiritual experiences, all of these things, out-of-body experiences. I know you have some stories of that suggest that perhaps reincarnation is real from your own childhood. Ghosts, we've spoken about so many things. Anyway, and then if you go into a lot of these spiritual texts and study, you can actually, and you put into practice some of the meditations, yogas, or prayers, whatever they might be, you can actually have experience. It's amazing, isn't it? So all in all, I consider that perhaps that was a previous life.
Yeah.
I can't say for certain, of course, but perhaps it was. I wanted to say also there's this case, because we heard a talk at Studio 108 recently on reincarnation. I was desperately trying to remember this story that was told about reincarnation.
Which one was it?
It's about, I pulled it up on my phone, but it's about a girl called Shanti Devi. Have you heard this? Shanti
I think I heard it, yeah.
But you have?
Please explain.
Well, I can't remember it exactly, but it says that as a young girl, she began to notice that she remembered details of her past life. When she was about 4 years old, she told her parents that her real home was in Mathura. She was born in Delhi, but her real home was in Mathura, which is about 150 kilometers from Delhi. Discouraged by her parents, she actually fled from home, attempting to reach Mathura. And when she came back home, she stated that when she was in school, that she was married, and she died 10 days after giving birth to a child. And she was interviewed by various people, and she gave the name of her previous husband, all of this. And the name of her husband was Kedarnath Chobe or something like that. anyway, all these very specific details, what he looked like as well, where he lived. And it was something like, anyway, Gandhi at the time, he conducted an investigation into this case because he wanted to try and, he wanted to try and prove that reincarnation might be real. And so they went and they investigated, and they went to the home that she'd spoken about, and they found this man. And long story short, I can't remember all the details, but he came, or in fact, no, they brought, I think first they brought his brother or something, but they claimed that, okay, this is the man, this is Kedarnath Chaubey. They brought him, and when she saw him, she said, no, that's not him, that's his brother or something like that.
Wow.
Yeah. And then they did bring him, and he asked her some very specific questions, and when they were conceiving their child, it was something like one of them had an injury or a disability or something like that. And so the way that they conceived the child was very unique. They had to do it in a very strange way.
Like arthritis or something.
So, yeah, it was arthritis, something like that. And so he asked her how this 5-year-old child, how did that happen? And she explained it in perfect detail to him. Crazy, isn't it? Anyway, it's something like that.
Yeah.
And there are many other cases.
There's a lot of cases. I heard of one study with hundreds of cases investigated by this one professor. Investigated hundreds of cases of children that remembered previous lives, and we went to the place where they were speaking about and confirmed details, confirmed addresses, family members. There was one case, he was an army. In his previous life, he was an army man. I think he flew a fighter jet, and he confirmed the number the fighter jet had, like the serial number or whatever it is, to identify that jet and where it flew over and where it crashed and how he died and all these different things. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's really crazy. I wasn't fortunate enough to be part of such a study, but when I was really young, you guys know, when I was 3 or 4 years old.
Do a study on me, please.
Well, it's too late now because I've forgotten all of it. But my mother, she tells me, I don't remember it, which is usually the case with these kids. It's always around 3 or 4 years old, maybe 5 at the latest, and then they forget. They just forget. They lose their memory.
Yeah.
And I was 3 or 4 years old, and I used to tell my family very seriously, not in a joking way at all, apparently. I'm told by my mom that, yes, you guys are my family, but my real family's waiting for me back in England, of all places. They're waiting for me back in England, and my wife, my kids, and I have to go back and see them eventually. And I was very serious about all this. And yeah, I mean, that's as much as I know, but I forgot about it eventually. I remember a few things from when I was 3 or 4 years old, but somehow I forgot all about this previous life stuff. So it just shows that there's probably something going on, So why would a kid have such a fixation on a family in England? It's just strange.
I've actually met a couple kids with these tendencies. I did, for 1 year, I did nannying during COVID because I couldn't work. And so there's one family, he's like, oh, like a family friend, can you just look after my boy if you're not working a few hours a day? And this boy had one friend, I think it was his first cousin who was a girl, and whenever she would come over, she would talk about being like a pirate in a different life.
A pirate?
Yeah. She's like, my name was Dave, I was a pirate. And then she would just speak about it very vividly, about her ship and all of these things. And my mum would always be like, she's just so crazy. I don't know where she's getting this from. And so didn't really leave her with much confidence. But then I also have another family friend who, they've got a daughter as well. And that daughter said a few different things. Yeah.
Do you remember what she said or not really?
Not in detail, but she just said, I used to have a wife called Rose, and I used to have a bad knee and all of these sort of things. And then they're actually quite a spiritual family, so they fully believe her. But I myself haven't really had any past life experiences, as it were. But
apart from the past lives that you had.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, it's interesting. Anyway, these kinds of things, people will always dismiss them. Not everyone will always dismiss them, but there will always be people who will dismiss them. Because ultimately, if it's just something that they don't want to believe, they're just not going to believe it. They'll always find a reason. Oh, it's this or that, or they faked it, or or yeah, kids just have different fantasies and dreams. But when you were speaking about this past life regression that you had, the reason why I was asking you that, like, what would you say if someone said it was a dream? Is for me, the way you describe it doesn't really align with the way dreams work.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't really align with that. First of all, when you're in a dream, you're you. You're not someone else. When have you ever had an experience where you're somebody else in your imagination? I've never had that experience. Even throughout a meditation or some kind of guided thing, I never have that. That's one thing. The other thing is how vividly you remember it. I mean, sometimes I have a dream that is very vivid and lucid, and I wake up and I'm like, oh, usually I don't remember dreams, but this one I'm definitely gonna remember. But then somehow dreams have this nature where they just fizzle out eventually, even if it's like a couple days later, they just disappear, and that doesn't align with what you experienced. And then also just these different details and feelings that you had, and kind of all these different things. But especially that point that you're not you in the dream or in the imagination. That when does that happen?
That's a good point.
When are you able to imagine that? Your whole, this is the only body you've ever been in and the only mind you've ever had, how can you possibly even imagine what it's like to be in someone else's body so spontaneously, like what he experienced? How's that possible?
I guess it comes to the question as well, like, where does life come from? Because if you're an atheist, it's like life comes from matter.
Yeah.
But does life actually ever come from matter?
Yeah.
It comes from two living beings coming together, and so in that way, life is continuous, not a material thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Ultimately, the haters are always going to hate. I'm joking. Ultimately, there will always be people that will dismiss it, but when you have that science of reincarnation, it's such in one sense, it's such a motivator to be a better person, you know, because you might not see that at first, you know, but if you know that you're going to be coming back again and again and again, and that everything you do, there's a result for it, then you're going to change your behavior, you know, and either that or you're going to be hopeful for the future, you know, for what's to come. You know that if you do good things, that you'll have good coming at you, whether it's in this life or in another life. And many people actually, and this I find difficult to understand, but many people believe in karma, but don't believe in reincarnation. In fact, most of the world believes in karma in one way or another. So if karma is real and everything has to be balanced, everything is always balanced, every action has an equal and opposite reaction, then at the moment of death, if you're not completely balanced out your karma, then don't you have to go on? Don't you have to continue? Doesn't you as a living entity have to continue in this battle of good and bad always coming at you? If you've done good things that you haven't received the reward for yet at the moment of death, then is karma really real? You can ask that question, you know? So if you believe in karma, you believe everything's balanced and everyone gets exactly what they deserve, then reincarnation has to be there, you know? So if you just explain it like that, then people will have to kind of face that reality in one way or another.
Yeah, I do remember an experience which it kind of, for me, explains that your spiritual progress goes on life after life. Even if you forget your material occupation, your material duties, you might just see a spiritual path and align with it completely. So I remember meeting this one lady, and we were at a coursing. It was right opposite a hospital, and she was reading some book, and I just started speaking to her about spirituality and these types of topics. She was saying how her children's names are like spiritual names, like Zion and something else, and all of this type of thing. And then
Scientology.
I don't know. I don't know exactly.
Sounds like one of those names.
But then she's like, what spiritual practice do you do? She asked me, and I said, I chant a certain mantra and do other things. And she's like, oh, what's the mantra? I said the mantra to her, and she's like, no way. And I was like what? What's making you react like that? And she said that about 1 year ago, her father passed away just opposite the hospital. We were opposite. In that hospital, he passed away, and just after he passed away, a friend of mine from America sent me this mantra that he just chanted. I chanted it for like a good few months, and it helped me a lot, and I just completely forgot about it. And now you just mentioned it, like almost like a year to his anniversary of his death, just opposite that hospital. And then I gave her a book, a book that I was reading in my bag, and she took it with her. And so that was, for me, it was like a really, really profound experience, because it reminded me that actually our spiritual progress will just, as soon as we hear Like I told her the mantra, she just immediately went to where she was when she was chanting it. She never like got off that platform of spiritual development as soon as she heard it. And so in a similar way, I've definitely had experiences, and I know others that I've had experiences of coming to spiritual life and just connecting with something very quickly, you know. And so that doesn't come from nowhere.
Yeah, because this is like a science of spirituality. Like all of these, there's religion, but then what the Vedic pantheon seems to offer, like all these yogas and meditations, is like a subtle science. And we have material science and empirical science and what we can see, touch, all of this. But then, like the science of karma and reincarnation, all of this, you can't. I mean, it's spiritual, but you can't physically perceive it, but it's there and it's working, and it's logical as well. And you can have experience of it at a certain level. So yeah, I love it. Like you said, yeah, when she heard the mantra, it took her to the place that she was in when she was chanting it. At the end of the Bhagavad Gita, it says, doesn't it, that there's no loss or diminution in the progress you make spiritually. And again, to come back to reincarnation, if you come to spiritual practice at some point during your life, you often, in theory, you pick up from things that you've done before as well. You can observe on the spiritual path as well that some people seem to take to things like a duck to water or make rapid progress in their spiritual practice. Some people, it's a bit more slow. It's different for different people. That if we accept in theory that these statements on reincarnation are true, then it's it suggests that something, like you said, you pick up from where you left off, essentially. Another thing that's interesting, it says, is that if you've kind of made some progress in your spiritual life, but you haven't gone all the way, so to speak, in terms of understanding yourself as a spiritual being and purifying yourself of your material conditioning, enlightenment or self-realization, whatever term you want to use, then you get the opportunity to take birth in a better situation, essentially, which can give you facility to do spiritual practice. So you might be born in a family of spiritual practitioners, or where you have great material facility. So it gives you time and space to get interested in spiritual practice. Or maybe you'll just experience something in life that puts you in such a difficult situation that you have to turn to spirituality, which is suggestive of a higher plan as well, when you look back. I also wanted to say that with what you were saying, Abby, just that reincarnation, it's a very good way of explaining, because people say, how can an all-loving God create so much suffering in this world, and so on and so forth. It's like, well, on an individual level, but if we accept that there's more than one lifetime that we have lived, then things that happen to us in this life, which don't seem to have any immediate explanation, or they don't seem to point towards an omnibenevolent higher being conducting like that situation, then you can understand that maybe in previous lives, or you've experienced or done things that, like you said, karma, balance, we have to account for. That's an interesting way of explaining. And I was also thinking that different faiths actually, like in Judaism as well, there's a suggestion that reincarnation might exist, isn't there?
They believe in reincarnation.
They believe in reincarnation.
Yeah, I've heard that as well. I met a rabbi once who was telling me reincarnation is real.
Yeah.
Many different philosophies, I think, actually.
Also, Christianity comes from Judaism, so Christians kind of, maybe they should believe in reincarnation.
In the Bible, even, in the Bible, even it says, because Jesus' cousin, John the Baptist, who baptized Jesus famously, there's a story in the Bible, but Jesus literally says, like he came as Elijah, but none of you recognized him, or something like that.
Yeah, I remember hearing that.
And there's one place where it says, because the disciples of Jesus are asking him about this blind man. And they ask him, why is he blind? Is it because of sins that he performed in this life, or sins that he performed in previous lives, or is it previous to this life?
Wow.
So that suggests clearly it's that you can perform, they could have
Yeah.
had some sinful activity in a previous life. So what does that mean? That means you were alive and on this planet doing things. And the Quran is also a very subtle message to reincarnation, which some may agree with and some may not. But it says basically in, botched translation, God is explaining about afterlife, basically. And this is what Muslims, they say is, no, he's just talking about heaven or hell. And he brings you back. But he says, I cause you to die, and then I bring you back, and then I bring you back. It says it as in more than once. Like I bring you back many times, basically. And so that's reincarnation again, And, in the Vedic scheme, you have this whole map of the universe where you have, for those who don't know, you have the earthly realm, which is not the only realm, by the way, which I think scientists are now tapping into, and everyone, there's different realms of reality, different dimensions, and so on. So you have the earthly realm, it maps this out, and then you have 7 upper realms and 7 lower realms, below and above. It explains the 7 higher ones are places where you can get a higher level of enjoyment. So if you do really good things, not necessarily do something to get you out of the cycle of birth and death, but you do things which are good, pious, and it brings you to a higher level of enjoyment, and then vice versa. And the planetary system, which is one of the higher ones, is called Jannah Loka, the planet of Jannah. And in the Quran, the name for heaven is Jannah.
Wow, that is amazing.
So, and in the Quran also explains that you have the earthly realm, and you have 7 layers of heaven and 7 layers of
It
hell.
does. Wow.
I
Yeah.
know that.
And it explains that you can go to different layers of heaven based on the different good things that you do, but that God's realm is beyond that. And it's exactly the same as the Vedic paradigm. The Vedic literature explains that there are these 7 higher realms, 7 lower realms, the earthly realm where we're on right now. And through certain activities, you can go up and down, but ultimately the goal is to develop pure love and you get out of it completely. Eternal life, essentially. And so
Wonderful.
you can't just take half the thing, if they got the same philosophy, they got the same philosophy. You have to take the source,
So the idea of heaven, the idea of
heaven, the name for heaven, the different the number of dimensions above and the number of dimensions below, above and below. Of course, it's not a geographical
but then
location.
God's realm is beyond that.
Yeah,
And
that
that's
whole thing is the same.
Same as the Vedic paradigm, because the spiritual world with God is beyond even heaven. But in the Christian paradigm, of course, you have the idea of heaven and you have the lower region. One interesting thing, I've told this on the podcast definitely, but for those that didn't hear, when I was at university, I got very into Christianity, and my friend, he would go regularly to church, and I remember, now it makes sense, but he told me this story of going to church, and a guy went to the front and gave a testimony, and he said, I saw heaven in my dream. And the pastor said, okay, please share with the congregation. And so he said, in my dream, it wasn't actually what I expected heaven to be like. He said, I was actually, he said it was like I was in space and I was traveling and I was seeing heaven, but heaven was actually so many different planets. There are all these different planets with different people enjoying on these different planets. So that's what it was like. It's like, it's a bit different to what I expected it to be like. And yeah, I remember my friend telling me this. And now when I look back, it's like, yeah, this is exactly what's written about. And yeah, you have there's higher dimensional reality, as you said, which scientists kind of are now accepting. But yeah, there's higher planets. I mean, there's places where people live, and yeah, there's life on higher planets, lower planets as well. But it's all still material.
Yeah.
That's why karma and reincarnation happens.
Yeah.
When you go beyond to God's realm, there's you're not doing material activities, you don't get karma, and you're eternal. Yeah, you're as it says in all scriptures as well.
Yeah, and then that difference also between, because obviously in heaven, in the Vedic paradigm, a temporary place, not an eternal place that you go to, but somewhere you go temporarily. It's just another life that you can take. It's all about enjoyment, and in the Quran,
longer life.
Yeah, longer life, more enjoyment, all that. But it's all about enjoyment. You have beautiful trees, beautiful rivers, the best tasting fruits, all the everything we have here is there, but at a higher level of enjoyment, in a higher dimension, higher realm. So it's the same thing again in the Quran, that these layers of heaven, they have such pious levels of enjoyment. Everything is so much tastier, sweeter. The people are kind. Everything's just better, but not necessarily filled with love and kindness and connection with the divine. It's not necessarily the emphasis. And I always wondered about that, and Muslims get confused that that's the goal of life. But then now, after reading the Vedic scriptures, I understand better what the Quran is pointing to, that there's these higher things that you can reach or achieve, higher levels of enjoyment and existence that you can achieve. But ultimately, the goal is to go beyond that also, and not get lost in that, you know?
I guess it depends on your motivation behind your spiritual life. 'Cause it said 4 people come to spiritual life: those who are distressed, those looking for wealth, those who are inquisitive, those who are looking for the absolute truth, why I'm here, what's the purpose of life. And in spiritual life, it can be for many different reasons. You can go through a yoga course for a couple of weeks in Bali. You can do these reincarnation things, but what are you actually doing it for? If you're only doing it for yourself, then what can be the biggest result from that? I met a person recently just on the street, who we were walking by, and she was just like looking really upset. But for some reason, I just was called to just speak to her. I don't know why. And she just said she was diagnosed with cancer, and she just looked like really, really, really upset. But she was also open to speaking, and so I just said to her, yeah, how are you feeling? What's going on? She started explaining it to me, and then giving me the story. She just found out she has cancer. She's really upset. She kind of wants to go, but something happened. And I just said, we're part of a spiritual community. Please come along, and we teach that you're not this body, you're the soul. So you can come. We have this place, Studio 108, and she's like, oh, yeah, please tell me more about it. And I told her about it, and then she started crying right there. And then just by hearing about having some kind of spiritual practice, she was like, thank you. And then she walked away. But I gave her the details of our studio and things like this. And so what I was thinking about after that is that we have so many regrets in life. We regret, I wish I had that material job. I wish that I saved financially. I wish that I took great care of my body so I wouldn't be in illness or distress or things like this. But when do we actually regret our spiritual life? When do we regret that, I've been here for over 50 years, but, I don't know who I am. And that actually material regrets are bad because they leave you with lamentation, distress, depression, but actual spiritual regrets are actually a good thing because they cause impetus for change. In that moment, speaking to her, when she was in tears, I could feel that she regretted her whole life in a way, that she had no spiritual impetus. But she wanted to change in that moment. And it just really touched my heart. And I realized that, I've been here for over 20 years, and most of that time I've been neglectful of my spiritual life. And all of these material things that we've accumulated are going to go.
She was 20 years old?
No, I was saying from my own life.
Oh.
She was much older, but, so, yeah, we can have these material regrets of all these things, or spiritual regrets, and those spiritual regrets can actually lead us to these higher realms, but even above that maybe, by contemplating these things.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
See, this is what they say, you never know if something's a blessing or a curse, because something like that, cancer, okay, is very difficult and it's very tragic in many ways, but that could be something that sparks the most exciting time of your life.
Yeah.
You ever see that movie Bucket List?
No.
Oh, that was one of my favorite movies. Jack Nicholson and Morgan Freeman. You never heard of it even?
No.
Oh, that's a good movie. Morgan Freeman, Jack Nicholson in one movie, and they just both terminally ill. They meet in the hospital on what they thought was their deathbed. Anyway, they end up writing this bucket list of all these different things that they want to do. Jack Nicholson is really rich. Morgan Freeman's poor, so he's like, oh, whatever, I'm gonna pay for everything. And they go skydiving, they ride race cars, they just do all this crazy stuff. But anyway, this is like the spiritual equivalent, and they had the best time of their lives, by the way. And that's the whole idea, is that this thing, which is really tragic, actually ended up being an impetus for them to have the best time, the most fun, the most experiences. They learned the most. They went deeper into their sense of identity, who they are. So that's what spiritual life is like. Sometimes you have to go through something difficult, and you feel like, why me? It's not fair, But actually, it helps you grow.
Amazing. And then they reincarnated as God in Bruce Almighty and Johnny in The Shining.
That's a good one, Neil.
Anyway, yeah, I think sadly we're gonna have to wrap up the episode, but that was very sweet. I hope you guys relished some of the knowledge and reflections. Please, like I said, inundate the comment section with questions. We want to engage. And we'll send any of us a message if you have our numbers. I know a lot of the listeners, and we've actually met now at Studio 108. Come on down to Studio 108 if you've enjoyed these episodes as well. We'd love to meet you. And take care, guys. See you on the next episode. Thank you very much.